The most overhyped game in the history of VR games is also the most dividing game that over the last week polarized the VR community and split it into two camps: Love Bonelab and Hate Bonelab. There's no in between. Most content creators and users I have spoken to find themselves very strongly on one or the other side of this spectrum. So what is it about Bonelab that makes people so divided in their opinions? A number of factors added up to make this hectic mixture of opinions and reviews. If you're new here, hey, I'm Tetiana. And today we're looking at the features of Bonelab that make people either love or hate it. If you've played Bonelab already, drop a comment below and let me know what you think about this game, and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, it really helps this channel. We will talk about these different opinions in pairs of love and hate, starting with hate, so that we end on a positive note. The first one has to do with the game genre. Believe it or not, many people haven't realized that Bonelab is not a traditional first-person shooter with ultra-realistic physics, but actually it's a Sandbox style game. Those who played Boneworks before were more prepared for that. Bonelab has a plot, but it feels kind of like an afterthought. There's no meaningful progression, substantial character development, and captivating moments that will leave you bedazzled by the story and emotionally invested in the characters. Bonelab doesn't have any of that, and it can be frustrating for some users. I guess it's the same reason why some people never got to Blatant Sorcery. Because the storyline in Bonelab is so short, all you're left with at the end are the gameplay modes that make the game feel like a tech demo rather than a complete game. But then again, this is the selling point of the game in the first place. So those who do not enjoy Bonelab for this reason, well, it's on them for not doing their research before buying it. The love side of this argument is that Bonelab is an incredible platform with some of the best mod integrations I've ever seen in VR. Not only can you upload your own avatars in the game that will have the physical attributes generated for them based on the character's silhouette, like the strength of their legs, their arms, their speed, and so on, but users also get to create their own custom levels, like the Mario Go-Kart level that went viral in just a few days. And in the future, there will be more customization options available, like users will be able to upload their own vehicles in the game and even custom weapons. One thing is clear, Bonelab was made to be modded, and if this is not something you're looking for in the game, then Bonelab might not be a game for you. But if you are into this kind of thing, then Bonelab is the ultimate playground to unleash your creativity where only the sky's the limit. And here's a second pair of love-hate opinions, starting with hate. Bonelab, at least for me, is quite janky, especially on Quest 2. Some of the physical aspects of it are quite inconsistent and frustrating, and I found this one very surprising because after hearing all about the groundbreaking physics and impeccable physical interactions, I would run into some pretty disappointing moments when my weapons would get stuck in textures and my VR hands would slip from buttons or levers when they're not supposed to. And must we even talk about the most frustrating climbing mechanics I've ever experienced in VR? I'm not alone in this opinion, and literally hundreds of people have expressed the same concern and frustration online, either on forums or on my Discord or directly in the game reviews. So what is there to love? Being caught in these details, it's easy to forget that Bonelab's predecessor, Boneworks, was released only on PC VR platforms, and the fact that Bonelab works on a standalone Quest 2 with all its intricate physics and gameplay mechanics is pretty groundbreaking on its own. Thousands of people were never even able to experience this type of a game before, and now it's unlocked to them in the form of standalone game that has very little difference when compared to its PC VR version. This is pretty incredible, and sure, while some occasional jank might still occur, many people actually perceive it as a part of the game and the challenge to get over the hump and get used to the controllers in order to master the in-game navigation, to each their own. In addition to jankiness, there's another very frustrating thing about the gameplay that bothers a lot of people. From the very beginning of the game, Bonelab makes absolutely zero attempt to explain or guide you through any of the gameplay mechanics. You won't find a detailed tutorial or clear markers or hints, in-game tips, nothing. You're completely on your own. I don't know if it was made to be this annoying by design, but I know this: no other game made the content creators kill 6 hours per day trying to figure out the most basic things, like opening the story mode. It is ridiculous how unintuitive the gameplay is for those who were not familiar with Boneworks and are discovering this type of a game for the first time. Naturally, it leaves a negative first impression. On top of that, the game provides no accessibility options that have to do with motion sickness. I spoke to many users and content creators, and even those who thought themselves to be immune to cyber sickness could still feel the discomfort after hours of action-packed gameplay, jumping through tunnels, swinging, and riding carts. In addition, the disturbing and meaningless opening scene depicting self-harm with no prior warning and no option to skip it was a huge disappointment disappointment and caused some serious discontent among many gamers. After all, developers need to learn on others' mistakes. Take SUPERHOT for example, because so many people were displeased by the scenes of self-harm, one of which is notable for the gamer needing to shoot themselves in the head. The developers completely removed all the scenes from the game that alluded to self-harm. Something tells me that this same destiny awaits Bonelab. But not everything is so dark and gloomy about Bonelab. Learning by failure and a complete absence of hand-holding has shown to be a welcome challenge by many gamers who love self-guided explorations and get a sense of satisfaction and accomplishment to be the first one to discover something new, find all the unlockables, and solve all the puzzles. It makes me think back to the older games where limited guidance and exploration of gameplay mechanics was much more common. For example, in modern day, can you imagine an RPG without quest markers? In a game like Morrowind, released in early 2000s, after you get the quest, you had to find your own place on the map where you need to go and who you need to talk to. No markers on the map, just your diary. And finding the right place could take hours, but nobody was complaining then. Similarly with Bonelab, many people claim that gamers have become lazy and too used to excessive hand-holding, and the developers of Bonelab definitely put their money on self-guided discovery and mystery rather than on illuminating the path for you. Finally, a large chunk of gamers who bought Bonelab on day one unfortunately became victims of hype. It is phenomenal how overhyped this game was before people could even play it, which made gamers around the world excited for this title without putting much time to actually learn what this game is about and what they should expect from it. For many users, Bonelab turned out to be something completely different from their initial expectations, and add a $40 price tag on top of it adds to the frustration and the sense of being deceived. I mean, check for the online reviews on your own, you'll find many people saying that they don't get the hype, they don't get why so many people are in love with Bonelab, and that is a result of not knowing that the game, like Bonelab, takes time getting used to all its quirks, and this is something that Boneworks players already did. The love side of this argument is done by the people who knew exactly what they were getting into, and those are primarily Boneworks players. Those who came to play Bonelab after previously playing Boneworks are a lot more prepared to the game's mechanics, style, and overall have a much more accurate expectations. As a result, they spent way less time adjusting to the new game and were ready to jump right in. And going back to the lack of hand-holding, it seems like Bonelab developers were targeting exactly that group of gamers, or maybe they just assumed that all VR gamers have already played Boneworks by now. How presumptuous. Do you agree with these arguments, and which side of the love-hate spectrum are you? Let me know in the comments and subscribe to Disco VR for more fun and informative VR content. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time!